Cryptocurrency as an asset class is here to stay.
That by itself is a very good indicator. Right?
Everybody has a Bitcoin tragedy story.
This is going to be a really crazy thing.
A solution in search of a problem.
I don't deny that at all.
A market that can be void of manipulation.
Now, every video and article around the web will make you wait for 45 minutes before they don't answer the question which they're supposedly required to answer. Not us. We are going to get straight to the point. Is the FOMO around cryptocurrency real? Let's find out. Michael?
Well, I don't know if I would so much call it FOMO, but I would say from the investors we speak to, there is no question that in their minds, cryptocurrency as an asset class is here to stay. And so in that sense, I think investors are wanting to make sure that they're paying attention to the asset class, they understand it, and then they're finding the appropriate allocation to it.
There you go. Straight answer out there. Siddharth?
I think very rightly said, Michael. We do know about a lot of corporates getting onto this, right? And usually when businesses get onto this, they have done their research. You have Grayscale Fund and MicroStrategies, then you have obviously Tesla, PayPal, and rest of the guys just joining on board. That by itself is a big indicator. And apart from that, I'm seeing a big move from a lot of talented folks who are starting their businesses or their career in the space, and that by itself is a very good indicator, right? Like where you see that there is something that is happening here, and you can see the smartest of the folks are actually taking interest and getting onto this. So I think it's quite real.
Well, we got that out of the way in the first 1 minute, which means for the next 29 minutes, we're going to get more things out of the way. Hi, thanks for joining. I'm Ashwin Raghunath. This is Business Insider India, and we have Michael Sonnenshein. Michael is the CEO of Grayscale. They are the world's largest digital currency asset manager. They have over $40 billion worth of assets under management. That is humongous. And we're kicked to have you plug in today. You can follow Michael on Twitter at Sonnenshein. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for joining in.
Thanks for having me.
Please also join me in welcoming Siddharth Menon. Siddharth is the COO and co-founder of WazirX. WazirX, of course, is India's largest cryptocurrency exchange, and you could trade various cryptocurrencies with them. You can also drop in on Twitter and say hello to Buddha Source. That is Siddharth. Welcome, Siddharth. Thanks for joining in.
Same here.
One of the things that I hear from people who talk about cryptocurrency is that everybody has a Bitcoin tragedy story about how they missed the bus. What is still the big upside that is there in the world of cryptocurrency? Siddharth?
I think, so from an investor point of view, when you think about it, and from a trader point of view, right? So, and a trader looks at more, for him, the time is very important, right? Which is like a micro market we're talking about. From an investor, it's more about the value that is being created. And definitely if the big question is it really creating a big value? And if you really drill down, I generally believe, there is a lot of value that is being created. We are part of the whole revolution that is happening. And from a long-term perspective, this is an amazing journey, and I'm very lucky to be part of this. How this is going to pan out. So the upside is I don't know, but it's definitely going to be an amazing side.
Well, let's talk about the big side. Michael, is crypto too big to fail?
I think that most would argue that crypto, is kind of analogous to, the genie is out of the bottle, right? It's here to stay. The idea of decentralized currencies is something that is here to stay. It's an idea that has certainly captivated investors all around the world. And I think one of the things that's really important for folks to remember is that it's still really early days. I think a lot of people think that because they've seen some pretty dramatic moves in price that they somehow missed Bitcoin, or they missed Ethereum, or they missed some of these other really exciting protocols that have been developed. And the truth is that when you zoom out, this asset class really only got its start maybe only the last 10 or 12 years. And new asset classes are not born every day or every year. They're usually a once in a generation opportunity. And so I think if folks remember how early days it actually is for this asset class, there's still the potential for a lot more use cases to be developed, a lot more individuals and investors to get involved, and a lot more, utilities to be unlocked around this asset class for sure.
Quickly turn that around. So what is the big buzz that you think people have already missed when it comes to the world of cryptocurrency and investing here?
I think a lot of investors have dismissed cryptocurrency because they don't understand it. I think that one of the biggest challenges, certainly something that we're very dedicated to at Grayscale, is education. A lot of investors realize that assets like Bitcoin aren't necessarily a cash flowing asset like they may see when they invest in a common stock. It doesn't really squarely fit into that of a commodity or a currency. And so it kind of blends a lot of concepts investors know. But I think when investors really do their homework and think about the use cases around digital assets, whether it's as an inflation hedge, whether it's going to disrupt, remittance and how value moves around the world, there's a lot of use cases out there that are still yet to be tapped into, and investors can really start to see some of the ways in which this asset class can be disruptive or displacing of existing investments they may have. And no matter what you're comfortable investing in, there's always going to be some analog or some analogy that investors can get their hands around.
Well, it's early days, but Siddharth, if I'm going to come to you, what is the big bets that you think that you have missed, when it comes to this world?
I think, just like a lot of people, I probably entered Bitcoin when it was like, say, $200 or $300. And probably when it went to like, say, $1,070, $2,000, I sold off. I thought it was like the best thing ever, right? Like, so, and I thought I had the most of it, but then, things kept changing. So that's when I got more serious about it. It just went up. That's when I say, what is this all about, right? And when you try to understand that, obviously the mistakes that I made, I understand, getting back to it and, growing with it again. It's still not a missed bus. It's still a lot more to go, because when you think about it, we are right at that, the Bitcoin has gone far beyond the virality zone, where we talk about, it's just something that's, everybody's talking about. Now it is going to the zone of adoption, and adoption really, adoption by value is where the retention really happens, right? So if there is more value to it, people will retain that, and we can see that value coming up. Yeah, we can see that, how that is going to pan out. We see that, probably it is hedge against inflation or hedge against, many other things. Or just for example, when we talk about the whole internet economy, we are talking about something that's just going to be built out, and how all this cryptocurrency and Bitcoin plays a role. So when you put all those perspective, all the stories together, where it's heading, and it's still at a very early stage for all of us to, be on board.
Have you heard this little line that says that, show me a crypto trader who doesn't have a Bitcoin tragedy story and I'll show you a liar? Have you heard of that line?
Yes. I think it's full of it, right? Like that makes it fun, right? A lot of folks from 2017, by the way, who sort of probably burn their hands, are the ones who actually spend more time educating themselves about cryptocurrency and are the veterans in, this bull run.
Michael, do you have a Bitcoin tragedy story?
Do I have a Bitcoin tragedy story? I don't personally, thankfully, have a Bitcoin tragedy story, but I certainly have investors who have either been, locked out of a Bitcoin wallet, or, forgot their passcode, or, have some of those types of unfortunate instances in their history. But I think that's, one of the other things to think through, which is a lot of people sometimes dismiss, digital currencies, Bitcoin, et cetera, because of accessibility. When you look at places like India, where you have Paytm and, you have all these other, ways that value is moved around, the way that Bitcoin and other digital currencies are moved around is over different means, right? Over these secure networks that require a little bit more technological know-how. And so I think one of the important things for folks to remember is that as the asset class develops, the ease with which individuals can move Bitcoin around is only going to get easier. Even just a simple feature cell phone can allow someone to SMS Bitcoin from one person to another. And as time goes on, we'll continue to see more and more applications that make it even easier for folks to interact with the asset.
You just described Siddharth's wildest dream.
Absolutely.
A couple of weeks back, we had the El Salvador move, right? In the sense that, people have interesting graphical memory of incidents. Like a lot of people, from the 60s remember vividly the Kennedy assassination. From my generation, I remember what I was doing when I heard about 9/11. What were you guys doing when you heard about the El Salvador move? And how did you react?
I think from my perspective, we were very encouraged to see it. There is no question that we have seen the development of a lot of nation states and governments looking at digital currencies generally. So whether they're developing their own central bank digital currencies, beginning to explore Bitcoin for their own balance sheets. We've been of the belief that investors will also think about rotating out of certain assets that have historically been an inflation hedge, like gold, and looking at assets like Bitcoin, just perhaps better suited to a digital world. And I think El Salvador is really just the first of what will be many examples of governments who have not necessarily done the best job of controlling their currency or having to rely on the US dollar or another reserve currency that can start looking at Bitcoin and other value mechanisms to help their citizens be able to participate in their economies.
Just a quick check. Are we considering Eastern European companies as a part of this consideration? Is that what you think will follow suit next?
I think it's a patchwork all around the world. I think it's a pretty scary notion if you live in a certain geography and one day you wake up and your purchasing power is 20% less than it was the day before. I think a lot of folks would rather own televisions or hard assets or other things to protect their purchasing power than own a lot of their local currencies. And so, hard to say specifically where in the world it's going to take hold next, but certainly something that I think is being explored in a variety of jurisdictions.
Definitely. And Siddharth, how does this change things for you as an exchange, or what does this do to exchanges around the world?
I think more than that, right? Like, I mean, if very emotionally, if you talk about it, it's history in making. Like, we knew this is going to come, but we never knew it was just going to happen right now, right? It's reality. Managing a currency by itself is not an easy task. Not every country can handle it, and because then there's a lot of market cap, trades and everything around it. And the best way to do that is adopting a world currency. They obviously had US dollars, but now, accepting Bitcoin as one of the currency is actually sends out a lot more better, a very positive signal about, where everything is heading. I think this is going to be a really crazy thing. Back in India with the exchanges and most of the exchanges, I think what the signal that it gives out to people is more of confidence, right? Like where it is heading. There's more reality that is going to be. It's not anything virtual again. When you call it virtual currency, it just feels like virtual. Now there's real value to that. And overall, it's just a positive, sentiment that's just growing again and again.
I have this really crazy thought in my head. How people are buying citizenship. Do you reckon that there will be a rush towards countries that legitimize Bitcoin, people holding Bitcoin currencies, buying and buying citizenships there? Is that a possibility?
I don't deny that at all. Like, everybody would be. Why not, right? Like, because they believe in it. They believe in the next internet. They believe in what's happening there. And they are going to be the first movers who are going to take that, and soon everybody else will follow. So I'm not surprised.
What's your thought on that, Michael?
Tough to say. I think it's early days, like I've been saying throughout this conversation. It would not surprise me to see folks continue to think about their local currencies, what that may do to their ability to save money, pass money to the next generation, finance a business, finance an education, et cetera, and would not discount them looking at Bitcoin and other assets to help them kind of become part of what many believe will be financial inclusion around that.
Fantastic. Now, one of the things that we get asked most is that, hey, there's a new crypto coin out there. It's inexpensive. Should we buy it? There are just way too many out there. And Michael, how does this make life difficult for you as an asset manager?
I think it presents really more opportunity than challenge, right? I think there is a very low barrier to entry to create new digital currencies, and that's why we have so many of them today. We certainly do believe in a world in which there are multiple digital currencies that coexist with each other. If you look at gold versus silver versus platinum versus palladium, all part of the precious metals family, all have different use cases, all have different prices and addressable markets. And so similarly, we're going to likely see something that looks like that around digital currencies, where multiple digital currencies thrive and grow and coexist with each other, but are suited towards different use cases. And so I think again, comes back to what we said at the beginning of our chat, how important education is in really looking at the use cases around a digital asset and whether or not it's really looking to solve a real world issue or is perhaps a solution in search of a problem.
Lovely. I love the way you ended that. So that this is a good thing for you guys, right? Or is it?
Yes, absolutely. Like, we had the similar question, should we have too many tokens or too many currency? When we talk about virtual currency, or it's not just a currency now, right? Like if you take an example of Ethereum, if you want to use any product on Ethereum, then in this whole world, right, in the whole revolution that we are a part of, to even use Ethereum, anything on Ethereum, you need to pay gas. For that, you need Ethereum, right? Like so. So our goal was, how do we make the adoption amazing, and such that everybody has access to these tokens, and through exchange is just a small medium for them to have access to it, and just simply go there and use their favorite product, right? So in this whole revolution, we made that as our mission to bring adoption to this whole cryptocurrency, and to take it to masses, and give them that opportunity for them to participate in this. And with this whole, we don't know which project is great or good, right? Because it's only the test of time which will tell us. But essentially, as an exchange, we want to be just present it to our users and give them the access to this.
Do you someday wish that you have your own crypto coin called SIM?
Someday, yes, let's hope.
But of course, everything runs around regulations, right? And Michael, I want to ask this about you. Now, one of the more interesting videos on YouTube is Gary Gensler talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a part of the MIT courseware videos. And it's heartening to know that somebody who's heading the SEC is somebody who's completely aware of the landscape and who's aware of how the technologies work. But of course, this year, crypto is off the 2020 regulation. How are you reading the landscape out there?
I think it's, again, a little bit of a different story depending where in the world you're talking about. I think here in the US, our regulators have been super well engaged with our ecosystem, trying to stay ahead of developments which happen very, very rapidly. I think that they are looking for a certain level of maturity within the crypto market, a market that can be void of manipulation, a market where they can have surveillance sharing agreements in place between digital currency exchanges. And ultimately, we are certainly of the belief that more regulation will be good in validating towards this asset class. Certainly, companies like Grayscale are a really good example of companies that are operating around digital assets within existing regulatory frameworks. And so I think over time, you'll only see more of that validation come through from regulators, and we'll continue to help this ecosystem grow and mature.
And what do you make of the Indian landscape at this point of time?
Well, so I think India, like many companies, we've seen many countries rather, we've seen both accommodative and prohibitive policies around digital currencies. A lot of that, I think, sometimes has been rooted in some kind of knee-jerk reactions, just to very quickly try and get ahead of what may be going on, and kind of trying to stifle a little bit of the enthusiasm and excitement. But it's a very impactful idea. This idea of people using currency that's not created by their governments, and so I'm not surprised to see some of these prohibitive policies. But ultimately, I know that some of these countries which are more forward thinking, which are ones to embrace technology, which are ones to want to embrace innovation, are going to come around to digital assets like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, and others, and ultimately, have much more permissive policies around them.
Well, and of course, Siddharth is in the thick of all that action. Siddharth, nearly every discussion about cryptocurrency that we have at Business Insider, we have people asking us, is it legal? I mean, is my money safe? I don't want to ask you, is it legal? But tell me, what gives you comfort that things are going to be okay? And, it's just FUD and, you can get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, I think first thing first, I mean, cryptocurrency is not illegal in India. So that's that gives me a little more peace in India. The maximum the government has gone for, not government actually, the central bank has gone forward with is sort of having a blanket ban, which was sort of unconstitutional, and we sort of won that case against RBI. So it was like a major step towards getting things in a better light of things. But the best part is government is taking interest, right? And not in a bad way, but in a very productive way, trying to explore things and trying to see how this can work. Because obviously this is a very confusing market, even for people who are in part of this, the whole ecosystem. So, for government, it's completely, for them to even imagine, like, tokens can be something else, token can be currency, they can be asset. Many things are very fundamental that they don't know about. And we are like more focused on educating them and helping them also in every other aspect. And from when it comes to us, we are also very careful about how we manage things. We are always around the whatever the compliance is there as of today. We are always within that compliance and try to make sure we are as safe as possible, and the platform is as safe as possible for everybody else, right? And education is one of the biggest thing that the tool that we use to to educate the rest of the guys, so that things are very safe in this market as we go.
Thanks for that, Siddharth. Now, I just want to end our chat with a couple of easy and light questions. Now, we spoke about education that came about pretty regularly in this conversation. Michael, what is the one thing about cryptocurrencies that you wish people would stop asking you? The question that you're sick and tired of answering.
I think a lot of people still think that digital currencies or Bitcoin are good use for illicit activity, and it's probably the worst mechanism you could possibly use for illicit activity. Every transaction that you undertake in Bitcoin is really going to leave behind a digital breadcrumb, if you will. So it's going to leave a little kind of trail of what you've done. And so I think as investors think about that, we've largely seen investors kind of move away from that notion that may have plagued Bitcoin in its early days. But I would like everybody to stop believing that to be the case, and realize much more so what some of the great utilities are going to be for Bitcoin, and focus on that more than some of those things that plagued its early days.
Yeah, I think the most interesting question that people keep asking me is, when will my money get 10x? I think that's something that we should stop expecting, and we should start believing in the value that it creates than just making it 10x.
Never has economy and finance and investing been so interwoven into pop culture like cryptocurrencies, right?
Yes.
And you have memes. I mean, whoever thought memes could ever intersect with the economy? I mean, not in my wildest imagination, 10 years back at least. But there are lots of cryptocurrencies out there, some interesting names, some not so interesting names. Michael, what are some names which you think are absolutely ridiculous and hilarious, or both?
Well, I can't tell you that I focus too much on hilarious or ridiculous names. I will tell you that from my view of the world, I'm definitely seeing the development of some really interesting parts of the digital currency ecosystem. So the convergence between gaming and digital currencies, privacy and digital currencies, things like file storage and digital currencies. So I think it's interesting to see some of these really interesting use cases begin to get unlocked and developed, and that investors really do now appreciate there is an entire asset class beyond Bitcoin and beyond Ethereum.
Well, interestingly, last week we had an Indian rapper who started accepting, cryptocurrencies as payment for his performances in music, which we thought was like, okay, that's an interesting start. So that's to close this conversation. Hilarious, funny, ridiculous name for cryptocurrencies.
I don't want to offend anybody, but Dogecoin was when I first heard about it, probably years back. I thought it was like, what is this, right? So I think for me that still tops today.
Somebody making the fun of you, and then you turn out that, oh well, it is worth a lot.
Yeah, wish I did not sell mine.
Lovely. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a delight to have you join us here on Business Insider to talk about everything cryptocurrency, and of course, trying to answer the question, is the FOMO real? Which of course we answered in the very first minute. Siddharth, Michael, it's been a delight, and we hope to have you back on Business Insider India. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashwin. Thanks, Michael.